What's up, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Sit Down. As always, if you enjoy this Saturday video, please make sure you hit that like button and let me know what you think of today's breaking news story in the comment section below. If you're new around here, you just haven't done it yet. We're living on a rock and seeing this video for the first time. I don't know what you're waiting for. Hit that subscribe button below now so you never miss another Sit Down video. Today's video is powered by Profit X. If you are looking for a new app to wager on sports, click the link in the pinned comment and get yourself a Profit X account. There's no better time to wager on sports than right now. And Profit X has some of the best odds in the country. They've got a new sleek app that you can use. Get yourself an account, deposit, and wager. Remember, the best odds in the country, and I use Profit X. I'm betting on it today on college football, and I'm getting some of the best numbers I can get. If you're in states like California, Texas, where you don't have legalized sports betting, this is a betting exchange. So it allows you to use it in those states and up to 40 other ones around the country. Click the link in the pinned comment. Get yourself an account. Now, today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get in to another interesting organized crime topic. And many would argue that The Sopranos is the greatest television show in the history of media. And they might not be wrong. The show is based a lot on real people, real situations, and real storylines. The family that is the group that inspires the show is a group called the DeCavalcante crime family, and they are based out of New Jersey. Today, we're going to tell you about a father and son who have been Cosa Nostra from the beginning, and a recent arrest involving Anthony Whitey Stango. You're only going to hear about his arrest right here on the Sit Down. Today, ladies and gentlemen, let's delve into it. Whitey Stango and his father, Charles Stango, the people that are called the real Sopranos. Next on the Sit Down, Anthony Stango was born in 1981. He is currently 43 years old and was born in Livingston, New Jersey. He is the son of longtime mobster Charles Stango. Now, when you talk about Stango, he was born in approximately 1943 in Elizabeth, New Jersey. In his youth, he would live at 625 4th Avenue in Elizabeth, which is just a stone's throw away from a place called the Ribera Social Club. If you've ever heard of some of the early workings of the DeCavalcante crime family, this neighborhood is really kind of where this family took shape. And Stango was from that neighborhood and not far away. It was said that Charles Stango became an associate in and around the late 70s. And he was in a crew run by a person called Vincent Jimmy Rotundo. Now, Rotundo is a guy that was based in Brooklyn. He was originally in the crew of a person called Big Frank Cocchiaro, who generally, from what I understand, Cocchiaro got older and Rotundo took his crew over. And a lot of the early captains and a lot of the down the road captains were actually based in Brooklyn. A guy, Rudy Ferrone, was a DeCavalcante guy. He was based in Brooklyn. A lot of these guys kind of were based in Brooklyn, but the family was based in New Jersey. Charles Stango in 1980, though, and he would actually talk about making his bones. He made his bones. He allegedly murdered a debtor to the mafia named Billy Mann. Now, this was on orders from, allegedly, a man called Tino Fumara, who is a Jersey-based Genovese mobster who held sway on docks and in certain areas. Billy Mann allegedly owed him money. And for whatever reason, Charles Stango was given the job, and he would ultimately spend over 20 years in prison over that. So from approximately 1980 to 2002, Charles Stango was in prison. Now, what does that mean for his son, Whitey Stango, who, as I said, was born in 1981? Well, it means that Whitey Stango spent virtually his entire life, or at least his early life, without his father. And that would shape him into being kind of what he became. He was always, I think, looking for acceptance from his father, who he had to get to know behind a prison wall. So that's difficult for a young boy, a young child. And it's no surprise that Whitey Stango would follow his father into the life because that was all he knew, and that's all his father knew. Charles Stango was eventually released from prison, but it wouldn't be the last time he would go to prison. He would do various bids throughout his life. Now, eventually, once he's released in 2002, by that point, Stango, the youth, is in his early 20s, and he's already driving his life into the ground by entering organized crime, and he wants to be around his father. Now, in and around 2013, Charles Stango allegedly becomes a captain in the DeCavalcante crime family, and he is based out of North Jersey, the Elizabeth area. But he also spends time in Henderson, Nevada, which is a suburb of Las Vegas. He goes back and forth, and his crew operates in New Jersey, and they're getting involved in everything. Included in his crew was his son, Anthony Stango, a person called Paul Colella, and one of Stango's pals, a person called Mario Galli. Now, also involved in this crew was a person called Louis the Dog Oliveri, and Stango, seen here in surveillance tapes, also had an individual in his crew on the far left, a person called Giovanni Gatto. Now, Gatto, little does anybody know, is a police undercover, and he infiltrates Stango's inner circle. He had posed at one point, he was a biker who kind of just started moving around in OC circles. He starts slotting in with members of the Stango crew and eventually gets close to Stango himself. Now, one thing we begin to start to see develop between Giovanni Gatto and Louis Oliveri, from what I've gathered and from what information has told us, they did not like each other and regularly engaged in verbal altercations over different things. And at one point, Oliveri basically says that he believes Giovanni Gatto is actually no good, and he may be the police or FBI, or he's some sort of rat. Giovanni Gatto is actually undercover agent for the New Jersey State Police, a person called Giovanni Rocco. Now, it wasn't just this that Mr. Oliveri was engaged in. He was regularly being very irritating and annoying, not only to high-ranking members of the DeCavalcante crime family, but also Charles Stango. And Stango would have it all come to a head. It was also said that at one point, in and around 2014, Louis the Dog Oliveri was at a social outing involving other members of the DeCavalcante crime family in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Now, including testimony and different things, basically Oliveri was there at this event with his family. And at that point, Oliveri had gained a little weight when a person called Joseph Scalfani noticed Oliveri and made some sort of joke about his recent weight gain, to which Oliveri would verbally assault him in a way in front of his grandchildren and his family, which again is a no-no. Scalfani is a reputed member. He's a high-ranking member. And this is also done in earshot of the boss of this family, Charles Majuri. So Mr. Oliveri is becoming more and more hard to deal with. Throw in the fact that Giovanni Gatto, who's undercover, who's becoming very close to Stango, Oliveri is also, being out of line to him. He has an ear to Stango. Everybody's kind of pissed off at Oliveri, and it all comes to a head. Now, in a taped conversation, Stango meets the undercover Giovanni Gatto in Las Vegas on December 15th, 2014. During the course of that meeting, which was recorded, Stango explained to Gatto, who's undercover, that victim one, who is Oliveri, was the source of a beef or disagreement with the DeCavalcante crime family. According to Stango, Oliveri had been, quote, made by other leaders of the family, including a Cruz capo. However, in December 2014, Stango was told by other members of the family that Oliveri had insulted the acting boss of the family during the course of a social gathering, which was Scalfani. In addition, victim one and Stango had been involved in an ongoing disagreement over which of the two would control Undercover Gatto within the family. As a result, Stango concluded that Oliveri was, quote, out of control and that he had to, quote, meet death or you got to maim him or put him in a fucking wheelchair for the rest of his life or somebody's going to get a fucking jar of acid and throw it in his fucking face. Later, Stango would tell Undercover Gatto that he, quote, expected that the Undercover would kill or maim Oliveri or recruit someone else to do it on his behalf. On the following day, the Undercover would again meet with Stango in person. During that meeting, Stango again insisted that V1 Oliveri, quote, must be killed or maimed or by someone on his behalf. During the conversation, Stango would tell the Undercover that one might, quote, consider throwing a couple of pineapples, aka plastic explosives, into his place of business or, quote, stick up the joint and put a couple of bullets in his, quote, nuts. Or, okay, take his legs out. Later, Stango stated, we got a problem in our house, meaning the family, and we've got to, quote, straighten it out. When Giovanni Gatto, aka the Undercover, questioned Stango as to what would happen if Oliveri gets done, aka killed, Stango responded, quote, listen, I don't give a fuck. If he's gone, he's gone. See you later. They might give you 50 medals. They might give us 50 medals. Whatever happened, it comes from me. Stango would also add, but this guy has got to get maimed. He ain't got to get killed even. Stango then continued, I want to, quote, blow him up and that this got to be ended. This got to be ended, all right? I don't want you there. Don't be around it. Now, several days later, on or about January 27th, 2015, Mr. Stango also engages in a conversation with his son on the phone, who is in New Jersey. During the course of that conversation, Stango and Anthony Stango discussed the ongoing dispute between Charles Stango and Oliveri and members of the crew. Stango told his son, quote, the whole world knew about the problem with Oliveri and that you, quote, got betrayed in that crew. You did the right thing. You got betrayed. Anthony Stango would agree, quote, they're a bunch of backstabbing motherfuckers. I ain't going to let him fuck with me again. That's it. That's it. You know? So, again, Stango, his son, everybody's very pissed off at Oliveri, to which he goes to an Undercover who he believes is trusted and orders that Undercover either kill, maim, or set up the murder of Oliveri. Now, I also want to talk about some of the other exploits that Mr. Stango and his son are involved in together. And you got to hear these conversations between Whitey Stango and his father, Charles Stango. By this point, Anthony Stango has set up shop in Toms River, which is a kind of township area not far away from the Jersey Shore. Seaside Heights, Belmar, all these different places where there's a lot of young people, clubs, bars, good place to sell coke, right? To which Stango has a connect for. He instructs Golly and all these different people that he's friends with to go down and sell narcotics. And they're moving a bunch of cocaine, which is talked about in the indictment. However, also, Stango gets a bright idea. He wants to open in the Toms River area some sort of high-end escort service, like a bar where you have beautiful women, high-end businessmen come in, there's rooms, everybody gets paid, everybody gets made whole, and he conducts sexual exploits on behalf of some kind of escort service, to which he talks openly about with his father. And his father begins giving him kind of advice on how to do this. Stango, the older, would say, quote, and you got the big fucking garage in the back. You need something like a fucking place off the fucking road, okay? Like a warehouse where you can get in there and not where you can fucking hear your music. And you got to make it a private joint where you go in, where you can make it a fucking bar, where you can have all the girls, all of them can have your company there, and they come here. They bring people to drink. No sex, no drugs, no talking. Nothing in that joint except you set it up and you make a fucking G-note in a fucking day just in a bar. You get good music, not that fucking rap shit, just soft shit. Soft stuff where somebody can come. You got some couches, get some fucking boobs. You got every fucking thing. It's a club. You got to get paperwork. You understand? So essentially, in a weird, convoluted way, Charles Stango is telling his son to make it low key, make it look like a bar, and just have women there that look good. Everybody has conversations, exchange some numbers, and you set it up where you get paid on the back end, and it's basically a high-end prostitution service. Now, Mr. Stango would continue, quote, establish a legal club as a front for the illegal business in order to avoid scrutiny. He also would add, have reasonable prices. And it's also a good idea to, quote, put out fundraising materials that purported to be for wounded veterans or something like that. Go get a license for the joint, he added. Make a call. What do I need to get a club? Call a lawyer. Find what the fuck you got to do and can't do. And get ready to set that up. Make donations to the fucking wounded vets or something like that for every drink. The bulls and bears, Anthony, they survive. The pigs, they get slaughtered, okay? Always go for a bologna sandwich, If you get 5 bologna sandwiches, you're eating pretty good. So he's schooling his son. Don't be too greedy. Just take a couple thousand a week. Nothing wrong with that. Go the right way. Make it look legitimate. Have donations. It's almost like when you were a kid and a cop, you would get the dare thing to put it on the back of your car when you're selling drugs to make it look like you're actually, an upstanding citizen. This guy's teaching his son about how to do all this stuff. And in turn, Stango's taking the advice. Everybody's working. Everybody's earning. That said, it would all come to a head eventually because all of this stuff precluded the fact that Mr. Stango tried to get an undercover police operative to murder a made member of the DeCavalcante crime family. So eventually everybody's jammed up. Arrests include Charles Stango and his son, Anthony Whitey Stango, among others. Also jammed up in this was a person called Frank Nigro, who was the alleged consigliere of the DeCavalcante crime family. So this was a pretty serious arrest. A lot of the main conversations were between Mr. Stango on the far right and Giovanni Gatto on the far left, who turned out to be undercover agent for the New Jersey State Police, Giovanni Rocco. So Mr. Stango is kind of screwed in a way. Eventually, Charles Stango would plead guilty in this case and would receive 10 years in federal prison. Here he can be seen behind the wall with former Bonanno associate Chris Labate. Now, Anthony Whitey Stango would also plead guilty. He would plead guilty on charges ranging from selling cocaine and other drugs to attempting to start a illegal prostitution business, as well as carrying weapons. He was originally sentenced to 72 months in federal prison. Here he can be seen a little slimmer with a few of his pals behind the wall. Now, the reason for doing this show today is, according to information I was recently provided with and did some research on, Anthony Stango has recently been arrested, and he has not learned from his behavior over the years. And from what I know, according to his supervised release requirements, he still, I believe, is on supervised release. He was given a 5-year supervised release. Now, again, I will point out, he may be off that. I don't know the exact dates. That said, if you notice, booking date, Essex County, 8/26/2025, Anthony Stango, booked in Essex County for CDS, manufacturing, distribution, possession with intent to deliver, H and Coke, 0.5 ounce to 5 ounce. So that's a good amount of narcotics. Now, notice the charges. These are important. We mentioned the drug charges. He was also possession of a firearm while committing CDS, prohibited weapons and devices, unlawful possession of a weapon without a permit. That is the important thing here. Also, due to the fact Mr. Stango is a felon in possession of a weapon, my guess is this is going to go federal, or it already is going federal. I will point out, Mr. Stango was arrested approximately 30 days ago. He is not in the Essex County inmate locator. He is also not in the federal locator. I'm not saying anything. I'm just stating where he is currently. I don't know. Now, my guess is he is going to go federal with this. He's already done 72 months for drug crimes. He is not allowed to have a weapon. Okay, that is a complete and utter violation of very simple federal statutes, one of which is 922G, a federal law that prohibits certain individuals, such as convicted felons, from possessing firearms that are either shipped, transported, or received in interstate or foreign commerce. Violating this, immediately you go back to jail. Okay, this is a very simple statute that the feds are using mostly against young gangsters, black gangsters in the streets, where you go to prison, they use your Instagram and they see you have a weapon, they can hit you real quick at a 922G, give you 3-4 years behind the wall. Now, this is also concerning due to the fact that Mr. Stango was again arrested for PWID, possession with intent. This ain't good. He is also a reputed member of the mafia. He was made in approximately the 2010s. I have heard from various sources, Mr. Stango has been shelved from the mob. We have also heard, and I have heard through good sourcing, that Charles Stango is possibly running the DeCavalcante crime family at this point. There has been rumors that he's the UB. Missouri's quite old. He's even older than Charles Stango, who's 82. These guys are pretty old. Stango's never going to retire. He's not the kind of guy to do that. He is a born and bred mobster. So it's going to remain to be seen what is going on with Anthony Stango. He looks a little different. He's obviously a little bit older now. This comes from his Facebook page. He's very easy to find. I do want to state, and I think this is important, we have to realize when we look at Stango, okay, I understand years ago, he had kind of the hip hop look to him. But remember, these pictures were 15 years ago. Stango's in his 40s now. I talked to someone that knew Stango well and still knows him quite well. He would tell me that Stango is actually a pretty good guy. And unfortunately, he is just the product of a person who didn't have his father as a child. He was always looking for acceptance from his father. He's a great father himself. And he told me that he was sorry to hear about the fact that he had been arrested recently. I also spoke directly to Giovanni Rocco himself, and he would tell me that he always liked Stango and they had a good relationship, and they would both call Stango's father dad. They were pretty close, all of them. So we'll see what happens next with Anthony Stango, but he is going to be facing some charges here over the next couple of months. We'll see what he ends up copping to or what he ends up doing here. But just kind of another story that is going on right now in the American Mafia. We've had some arrests recently. I reported last week on the arrest of Gambino member Billy Scotto. This is another guy recently jammed up. So hope you enjoyed this video. I will say at one point here in the next couple of weeks, we will have on Giovanni Rocco. Looking forward to speaking to him. I know he's kind of been around the interview circuit. I also have an interview coming up soon with another member of law enforcement who infiltrated the mob in a way. So a lot of cool stuff coming. So let me know what you thought of the video today. And yeah, Anthony Stango arrested recently. We'll see you next week here on The Sit Down.